if you're a building company or a builder or a general contractor who doesn't utilize systems within your business, you are working harder to create the high speed. Whereas if we are general contractors, systems that have been established in our business that are very efficient, they actually give us the ability to run at a higher speed and actually conserve our energy or use less fuel. How old are you going to be before you start to experience life like you want it? I want to tell you right now, whether you like it or not, there is a better way to do business. Hi everyone, welcome to the Business for Builders podcast. Welcome to you if you're in YouTube land. Also, welcome to you if you just joined us on TikTok Live. We are a bit of housekeeping to get started. Obviously, like and subscribe, hit the notifications bell, all that sort of good stuff, and be sure to share it with someone who you think might be able to benefit from it. And certainly don't be afraid of leaving a comment. And maybe giving us an email if that's something that you want to do if you've got a question. So max@businessforbuilders.ca, great place to start. Okay, so what we're going to do is, we haven't got Instagram Live happening today, just TikTok Live. So for all of our viewers, we will get to some questions after we've done recording this podcast. So let's get into it. Hey, big shout out to Sandy Munro from Island Builder on Instagram, actually. And he basically, we put it out saying, hey, what do you want us to chat about more of, whether it was on the podcast or what have you. And he just basically put out their systems, which is an enormous subject. So what I'm going to do is try and break it down into bite-sized pieces, but I would say not very micro. It's going to be very macro still because of really the amount of, training that when we bring our general contractors through, what systems that we talk about takes 4 days. And even then it's such a big brain dump, it's really not something I can cover off in a 20 or 30 minute podcast. But what I want to talk about today is systems and slipstreaming. So for those that don't know me, I love a bit of motorsport. I race go-karts. And so, slipstreaming is something that, I understand pretty well. But when Sandy requested systems, I sort of put the two together because I've often said that systems give you leverage give you lifestyle. Now, really another thing that systems will do, it will create a slipstreaming effect. So what I want you to do is to grasp the concept. I think when us builders, and I assume I'm talking to general contractors or subcontractors, if we can understand or grasp concepts about particularly those that paint a bit of a picture of the end result or the end game, I think we then get prepared to pay the price for whatever we have to do to get the job done. We just don't like sort of getting issued with, a task, you must do this. It's like, show me the big picture. I'm creative. I'll work out a way through. So what I want to do today is try and, reveal to you a concept as it relates to systemization, and then, allow you a little bit of creative license to go and figure some things out for yourself rather than just down the camera, because one size doesn't necessarily fit all in the case of I can overload you fairly quickly with information. Especially as it pertains to systemization, because when I talk about, let's say, 6 or 8 pillars of systemization within our operation, to then go and drill down, there might be 10 to 12 dot points or keys or systems within that one macro system. And all of a sudden, we've got a pretty lengthy podcast. So I really want to keep it, to 20 or 30 minutes, but give enough insight and reveal to you or break the ice on, the concept of systemization within your construction business. So what I did was, what I wanted to do was join together systems and slipstreaming. And to give you a bit of an idea, I went and printed out a bit of a Wikipedia definition of slipstreaming. And essentially, the term of slipstreaming describes an object traveling inside the slipstream of another object. Now, if an object is following another object moving at the same speed, the rear object, note this, will require less power to maintain its speed. That is what a system does. That's leveraging. See, if you're in a race situation and the vehicle behind, to maintain speed, is using less power to maintain its speed, that should say something to you as a general contractor or a contractor. If I can systemize my business, that means I'm actually slipstreaming behind, and me as a human is slipstreaming behind my systems, which essentially means that I've got to exert less power to run my business. Just if you can grab that concept, it'll start to paint a picture on how important systems are. Because if I said you've got to develop systems, you're like, that just means more Word documents, more spreadsheets, and more work, and I've already got shit tons to do. Don't worry about systemizing. But when you understand that it will give you, and so a leverage or a lever allows you to move an object with that leverage that you wouldn't normally be able to move. So what we're saying with systems, we want to be able to, create the system that actually gives us the ability to maintain speed using less power. And I think all of us will understand that if we can do that, that will make our life better, essentially. Now, to take it one step further in auto racing, which is what I was talking about, what you do by slipstreaming is you essentially use less gas. Therefore, you're conserving fuel. So there's another good thing. It means we're getting more out of our week because we're not expending our energy unnecessarily or inefficiently. That also, in a racing sense, that actually gives us a competitive advantage because maybe it reduces the amount of fuel stops that we've got to do. And it also allows us to reach a higher speed, which means in a racing context, we're able to actually pull out and overtake under brakes because we're able to gain an extra 3 or 4 kilometers an hour over the length of that straight, which gives us the ability to overtake. So it gives us that competitive advantage. So if you're a building company or a builder or a general contractor who doesn't utilize systems within your business, you are working harder to create the high speed. Whereas if we are general contractors, systems that have been established in our business that are very efficient, they actually give us the ability to run at a higher speed and actually conserve our energy or use less fuel. So just try and grasp that concept as a bit of an introduction. What I would say, if you're new in the business too, what you got to understand is when I was an apprentice, I just showed up and I got told what to do. Right, hey, go and do that. Knock these nails into wood, whatever. You would just get sort of marched around and you'd be the dog's body and you'd get told what to do. Whereas when we're talking about business development and you want to be the boss man, then all of a sudden, what you've got to have is 2 things. You've got to have initiative and creativity. You've got to be able to understand that if it is to be, it's up to me. It's only going to happen if I really get amongst it and make it happen. And then you can't just be going, well, this is what we always did. I'm not going to tell that story, but we sometimes look at our predecessors and we go, well, that's the way they've always done it. Why would I change it? Well, in some cases, there's some truth to that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I get it. But I'm telling you, in this environment where technology is changing at such a rate of knots, it's mind-boggling. I think there's a lot of merit to considering better ways of doing things. And so, you're the boss. So you've got to have initiative and creativity because you are leading the show. So let's move on. So some of the systems I'm going to allude to today are in the area. And these are very macro, right? We're not going to drill down into some micro detail and bludgeon you to death and turn it into a 3-hour podcast. That's not what we're about. I want you to get off your ass and go and do some research and spend 50 or 100 hours researching each of these systems and really enlarging your understanding. What we're doing is about education. What I'm doing is I'm raising a flag. So what we do with Smith & Sons is we do create business in a box. We do, and I meant to bring the manual in again, but it's a 700-page manual. It's something that we spend hours and hours and hours and hours just fine-tuning, and we continue to fine-tune, we continue to add into, we continue to update and improve, and that's part of your responsibility as the boss man, because I want to run a successful general contracting company. And so some of the systems we're going to really just cover off real briefly are marketing. We're going to look at sales. We're going to talk about operations. We're going to talk about management in the areas of financial and construction management. We're going to talk about leadership and personal development. So what we're talking about, whenever someone says to me, Max, I want to be a successful general contractor, because last time I checked, I would expect that everyone gets into business because they want to make money and they want to create a lifestyle, and I would like to think they want to, leave a legacy as well. But to do that, what you're telling me is you're saying, Max, I want to master the art of being a general contractor. And I think that's admirable, and I think it's honorable, and I think it's a good thing to do. I'm a carpenter by trade. I love building shit. This office, we put this together. I put this together with my bare hands. I project manage it. I love construction. Matter of fact, I used to, when I had a crew of about 15 guys, I'd always get to the guys and pump them up and go, "We love construction, don't we?" And they'd sort of so piss off, Max, you're getting us down. But, we got to develop. We know that we love construction. But when it comes to building an effective, efficient, profitable, high-performance building company, what we're talking about is mastering the art of business development, not just, building houses or whatever. So what you've got to do when it comes to mastery, you've got to have a very solid relationship, a very good understanding or good relationship with pain, and you've got to have this never-ending desire and hunger for education. You've got, for me, it's like, how can we do it? And for me, doing what I do, when I'm talking to general contractors and I'm essentially selling them the services of a business system, I've got to be on point all the time. I've got to be cutting edge. I'm always desiring to know more about maybe what somebody else is doing, or if there's something that I've highlighted in our own business, where can we make that better? How can we do it better? I listen to a lot of the feedback from my operators, and I always am keen to either improve what we're doing or introduce something that we're not. It's super important. So good relationship with pain and a really strong desire to learn more. Right, so let's, the first one, number one, is marketing. So what I'm talking about there is brand, defining your preferred client profile, define your niche, and create a point of difference, and what is your value proposition. So really I'm talking about marketing message. So those are all the components that you need to think of. They were brand, defining your preferred client profile, defining your niche. Guys that say no job too big or too small, I understand that that's a great introductory type maneuver. If you might have heard the term buying the work, right? It's pretty common in some of the larger project builder type institutions where they will really, to get into the market. I know there was one big hardware store back in Australia that was really given a lot of profit away. Like, they were leaving a lot of money on the table because what they were going for is exposure. They wanted to get in, they wanted to inject themselves into the marketplace, get people interested, make sure people that become a household name, and then over time they would then reset their pricing structure to move into an area of good, solid profitability long term. If that's what you're doing, great. If you've had a website for 10 years and it still says no job too big or too small, you've missed the boat. Really, you've not defined at a high level exactly what you do. And I think this is why your marketing message needs to be vibrant and contemporary and up to date and very much growing with this is why it's important. Speed of the leader determines speed of the pack. If you're growing in your understanding of business development, then everything that we're going to talk about here develops along with that. So if you're stale in your education program, then what happens is everything behind you also then falls into that category of being stale and out of date, and you don't want that. So that's why I talk about define your niche. Renovations, remodels, it's what we prefer. We're very systemized around that. We're very micro detailed and around that. There is risk in what we do. However, it's very calculated and it's very organized. And so when we talk about high risk and high return, we definitely have got that. We've got good equilibrium between both of those sides. We've contemplated and considered all aspects, and I think that everybody says that, quality product and great service. That's what everybody says, right? So if you are going to say that, how do you demonstrate that? Why would people believe you? That's really, you've got to think. I think you've got to apply empathy in every aspect of your business, but particularly in your marketing and your sales. And so when you're marketing, these clients these days are no fools. It's really not hard for them to go and do some research and come up with some, good understanding of what's expected from a general contractor. So in some cases, it makes it more challenging for us to separate ourselves from our competition. What creates or what gives a competitive advantage? And so, if you're, let's say, we're obviously Australia, New Zealand, and Canada, but I speak for Canada. And so if you're in Victoria, if you're in Nanaimo, if you're in Kelowna, Vernon, or Edmonton, then potentially you could be up against a Smith & Sons operator. And all of our operators, promote the fixed price building contract. We also include a completion date in our building contracts, and we give a full list of specifications and inclusions before we go to the building contract, and everything is ordered in advance. So we don't do cost plus. We don't order on the fly. There's security given to the clients at the end of the day based on the price, what's included, and the completion date. And so our customers are prepared to pay a little bit more money. Now, really what it comes down to in your marketing message, if you do that, what we do is we believe that we charge what I would call the baseline market value for our service. Anybody that charges less than we do are basically just working for free and obviously run a charity, not a construction company, which I know is going to get me some hate. But unfortunately, what we've done too much is as general contractors, we think about that the price is everything and we have to be the cheapest. Now, this is why I say define your niche. So we're remodels, renovations, our customer base is probably 45 to 75, give or take. And we don't do work for businesses. We're not a B2B business. We're a B2C. We don't do work for realtors usually. We might build networks with realtors and get referrals from realtors, but essentially we won't go and do maintenance, on a 10-story building. That's not what we do. We renovate. And that the reason behind that is because we understand the psychology and the science with regards to our customer. And so that's another big deal. You've got to understand who it is that you're targeting. So marketing, those marketing systems, and of course, there's two parts to our marketing system. One is very much digital. It's very much of a strong suit. But then there's the other one that actually us at head office cannot do, and that is what we call referral, like a referral building type process, whereby you do talk to realtors and you do go and ask for recommendations from existing clients or past clients or whatever to be able to build your your inquiry process. Because a lot of what we do is digital, and it works terrific. But I think there's a lot of money being left on the table if you're marketing. You're just relying on a marketing agency to do your work. I think you need to pound the pavement, press the flesh, build those networks of business relationships whereby can be a source of inquiry for you and your business. So that's a couple of marketing systems. Right, so sales systems, obviously, if it's got to be documented. You've got to have a documented sales process, which means for you to have that, you have got to really have, and you know what, I could probably just dump you with all of my sales systems and you wouldn't even really go through them, because I know what general contractors are like. I think there's some misunderstanding about, well, if I have all of Max's documentations, I'll be off to the races. No, having the information is one thing, but the implementation of that information is another thing. So when we talk about systems, yes, we want documentation. We want to have our sales process down. We really want to have the understanding that actually sales is a science and a psychology all at the same time. But really, we've got to if we're going to create systems, the reason we create systems is so that you, the business owner, can set up the macro system of the business and really just get some dividend paid to you in the way of both finances and time to actually go and enjoy, life at a high level or as much as you want. So, everything in sales, everything from your initial site visit, your estimating process, how you go about qualifying, giving them, understanding how important it is to talk about budget at the first meeting, understanding that you can go away and give them an estimated bracketed price range, and that you can also, create value to the client. And this is not about charging for quotation. This is about understanding that your knowledge and experience is worth something. So getting paid to talk to suppliers and subcontractors and compiling that accurate fixed price like we do represents value to clients, and they actually they transact with us at some level to provide that service. So, I think understanding the science and psychology is super important. Finding out what's important to your clients, make it important to you. That's certainly an important facet of developing and documenting a sales process. So again, we pretty much talk about one day is really designated just to talk about sales. And I really don't think that, we even cover the 100% of the sales process within our training, our initial training with our franchise general contractors. Okay, let's go to the point number 3 there, operations. Now, that's a fairly broad term. I've got a list here. We're talking about CRMs. We're talking about CRM, accounting, and estimating software, right? If you are to build business, again, at a high level, you can't possibly remember every single conversation. So the CRM, or customer relations management system, is so that I can have a conversation on the phone and maybe I can be typing at the same time, or maybe I'm taking notes, or, at worst I'm taking mental notes and I'm going to get off the phone and enter those details in straight away. So there's all of these management systems, because again, systems will give you leverage give you lifestyle. And then, the part of that systemization is that you can then recruit good humans to run those systems, which helps you run your business. And what that, it allows you to 3 and 5x your business, which is what you need to do if you're going to take on some of that overhead. That will actually pay you exponentially better than if you were just to do, on the tools, just your pair of hands, one guy machine or one gal machine. So, I think it's understanding the concept. And you know what? I think our goals and our dreams change year on year. I think, back when I was, say, 21, well, obviously, what I wanted to do back then, it's significantly different today. Because of a whole bunch of reasons, because we mature and our objectives change and our desires change and the things that we want to do changes. So, maybe you're hearing this podcast for the first time. Maybe this is all still sort of kind of new to you. I think just allow it time. Just keep researching. If it's got your interest a little bit and you want to run a more of a high performance building company, then I would advise you to just to keep digging, just to keep researching, and at your leisure, really dive into some of these things. So software is super important. I mean, if you're still using Excel spreadsheets and Word documents for your estimating and your proposal, development there, you need to really get away from that. Get with the 21st century. Yes, it's going to cost you money. So again, you've got to invest money up front so that you can develop systems within your business. And I've said this before, you'll invest money, you'll drop below zero. Over a period of time, you'll be running underwater. But your goal is that over time, that investment will actually pay you, and it will J-curve, and it will increase your ability to create profitability within your business. Another operation system, you're talking about team building. Obviously, human resource, that's a big part of your operations. Your business development and strategic planning. Again, that's you've got to be thinking about the end game. You've got to reverse engineer. That's a big thing that I'm a bit of a fan of. Start with the end result in mind and then reverse engineer. Obviously, checklists and workflows. So I think for us as builders, we're used to looking at blueprints and plans and things like that. Having checklists that we can refer to, having workflow charts where we can go, okay, this is how our lead generation, like for us, in corporate, we have, what we call a lead management workflow. We understand that how the leads are generated, who takes care of the initial, and then basically where the handoff to our general contractors happens, how it happens, where the information is stored, how that information is distributed. These are all the systems that we use currently every day. So again, like I don't know how many checklists we would have, but it's got to be a dozen or more. So. And that's just in our operations file for our general contractors within this office to run corporate office. There's probably a dozen checklists or more as well. Just to set up this podcast, there's a checklist to go through. Make sure we always, as a habit, go back, because what it does, if you're too involved in understanding the how, you will forget about the why and the creativity and the creative part behind what we do. So what I want my creative team, let's say, is don't try and come into this studio and remember everything. Get a checklist together, and then you can forget about all of the rudimentary stuff. It's all on a checklist. Go through the checklist, tick it off, great. And then we go into more of the creative stuff. So for you as a builder, having workflows, having checklists, what it does is all you have to do, it's like templating, right? You think about it once. So we might have a bathroom estimating template, or we might have a kitchen estimating template, or a basement remodel template, or an addition template, or a new home template, whatever the case may be. We build that once so that we don't have to think about that micro anymore. We can just concentrate on the higher level stuff, like making sure the quantities are right and the prices are right and things like that. And then we have those checklists as a safeguard, or a last man standing to make sure that we don't miss anything. And then the other thing, part of, and I might not have covered everything here in operations, but company culture, that's a big one. A couple of things you need to be as a business owner. You need to be a good talent scout. So you need to recruit good people, and you need to understand how to develop and maintain a good company culture and understand the impact or the influence that it has on your bottom line. So, we're quite a ways in here, and I'm only halfway. So you can see why I knew from the outset that I could literally spend 8 hours. I don't know. I could probably spend an hour on each of these, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4-ish, 5, 6, 7, So there's a whole day that we could talk about on systems, ironically enough, to do with all the different aspects in there. So that was operations. All right, let's quickly touch on management. And I want to talk about there's 2 parts. that I want to focus on is obviously financial management and construction management. A couple of things for financial management. You've got to know your numbers. Okay, you've got to understand what the moving parts within your business are. You've got to understand back costing and cost engineering. You've got to know that when you create a budget, which is part of your estimate to win the job, you've then got to reconcile your actual spend against your budget to know where you did really well in your estimating process or where you didn't do so well. It's like your report card. It's like, okay, in my mind as a professional builder, here's the budget for the job. And then you run over there and you start building it. And then that's when you start to reconcile those two and figure out whether you did a good job as an estimator or whether you've got to go and take some courses in estimating to figure out, where you're doing things not so well. You've got to understand the difference between markup and margin. This is all financial management. Too many guys will mix those two. They blend those two together. And, I've probably said this before. Maybe I said this in our live on Friday. Markup is the action. Margin is the result. So if you mark up by, I think it's 45%, I think that your profit margin is about 33%. I might have that a little bit off, but give or take. So in other words, when you have 100,000 and you mark up by 45%, the profit margin is a lesser percentage of the overall contract price. So marking up is the action, margin is the result. Profit margin is the result. But profit margin is kind of where we want to focus a lot of our time because it is it's the result of the markup. It's like, what markup are we applying to achieve the profit margin percentage? And we really want to revolve around markup. We want to revolve around percentage points, not so much dollar values. Percentages always tells us a bit of a story. Other parts, we want to look at our work in progress accounting. I think too often builders they just see a big lump sum amount of money in the bank and they think that's great and that's their how they analyze the amount of equity that they have in their business. They never actually know how much they owe, and that's always a danger because they run off and buy toys and trinkets and shit, and then they come, they've either got to pay a tax bill and they haven't got the money, or it shows more money on their balance sheet as profit, and then they've got to pay tax, which they shouldn't be. And so, I think a lot of the time, the way we undertake our accounting is super important. So, work in progress accounting, or it's sometimes called overbilling or underbilling. If you Google that will, and you're going to need to watch that a few times because this is going to turn your head inside out. Because I know what builders are like. We all love to build shit. The minute we start talking about accounting and bookkeeping, the blood drains from our head, and but I'm saying, this is why I said at the start, if you can grasp the concept of why you've got to do something, all of a sudden doing it doesn't become such an inconvenience, because you're going, actually, you live and die off the back of your ability to operate your finances in a very competent, coherent and organized fashion. We all want profit, but we just don't know how to calculate where we're up to at any one moment. Not such a difficult thing if you're only running one job at a time. Granted, one-man band running one job at a time, you could probably do the math in your head. But if you want to run a $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, $10 million business, what I would say, I've got one of my guys in the group, he says, well, I want to get my builder's license and I want to be able to go and, do larger projects, which means more revenue. And I said to this guy, what you need to do is develop the techniques whilst you're a very small business, even though it's an overkill. But what you can do is you can develop the technique, and then as you get larger, then it becomes a part of who you are. It's your natural process, and that will serve you well. Conversely, the problem is that they don't develop any systems when they're small, and then by the time they get big, they're just doing bigger numbers. But because they don't understand the analytics or how to analyze, when they get big, they need more revenue just to cover all of their running expenses, and they just lose track of actually their position. It's no different if you were flying an aircraft and your dashboard goes dark and it's at nighttime and you can't see the horizon. All of a sudden, you could be upside down and you just don't know it. And that's exactly how builders feel. They become disoriented as far as their financials are concerned. And then they wonder why they fly into a mountain, because they never actually understood what their altitude was, what the attitude of the plane was and where the horizon was. And then they're basically out of control. And I'm telling you, it happens more often than not. Okay, so now as far as construction management, so management of your construction project, we're talking POs, WOs, COs, and project scheduling. POs is purchase orders. If you are not tracking, like I talked before about, comparing your actual spend versus your budget spend, the only real way you can do that, you've got to be issuing purchase orders. Now, I don't care if you have a purchase order book and every time you go to Home Hardware or Home Depot, wherever you get your shit from, and you don't pull out a carbon copy, which I understand why you do this. It's because you're on the tools, let's say, but you've got to have a purchase order book where you get the invoice over the counter. You give them, you just flip open that purchase order book, and it'll have a generic number up the top side, and you can add a J, number in front of that with a /. And then what you do is you take that out of your book and you staple it to that invoice. Now, what you can then do is you can apply that actual spend to your budget within your estimating software if you've got it, and I hope to God you do. But that's the power of a purchase order. That's what it does. It enables you to then cross-reference your actual spend to your budget, your project budget. Now, WOs are work orders. That's what you would use for your internal guys. We talked about daily site logs, whereby you can use that daily site log, and my guys use either a software called Deputy, which has been a little bit hit and miss as far as reliability goes. It syncs with our job management software, but it was a bit clunky. And one of the guys actually went back just to using a Google form, and he created a list of questions. And, that was one of the documents I was probably going to share with, my audience at some point when I kind of get my shit together and figure out, what I'm prepared to give away. But that daily site log, that really helps you understand. So you would have the daily site log, which would tell you, the business owner, what jobs you guys have been on and what they've been doing and what deliveries were made and if there was any overtime, et cetera, et cetera. And you can use that reporting mechanism to create work orders, which you can then attribute to your budgets, and it keeps an eye on your fixed expenses as well. COs are change orders. So when we're dealing with clients and clients come up to you and say, "Oh, Max, can you just do that little job and just change that, swinging door from that way to the other way?" I'll be like, absolutely. You know what? There's no cost to me to do that. We're still at frame stage. I haven't ordered the interior doors. What I need from you is a quick change order. It'll be no cost to you. I'll quickly generate it. I just need to make a note that it's, it was a right-hand swing. It's now going to be a left-hand swing. We are going to make that modification in the plan. I just need you to sign off just so we're on the same page. That's called construction management, because clients, if you go and do that and you don't have that document, they could come back and say, well, on the plan, it shows that it's a left-hand swing. But then you'll go, well, hang on, you said to me that day that you wanted to change it. Well, I don't remember that conversation, right? If it's not in writing, guys and gals, it doesn't exist. So that's the power of having, all those documents. And then project scheduling. How is it possible that you can work out your whole year if you're not even working out how long a job's going to take? And for God's sake, do not start 3 jobs at the same time in the same week. Like, you've got to, if you don't manage your business will manage you. So you need to be very preemptive. You need to be very design orientated in how you run your business. If you start 3 new homes this week and you are all by yourself, that means you're pouring 3 slabs. That's impossible. That's ridiculous. So what you need to do is keep, a couple of miles of separation. I've talked about it before. My cousin's an air traffic controller in Australia. I think he controls the approach airspace going into Sydney. And, what he says is that you've got to have, I think it's 2 miles of separation between aircraft. And so what you've got to do as a builder, you've got to keep a degree of separation between your projects as well. Otherwise, the demand. Remember, we're trying to create systems that allows us to operate at a higher speed or a higher level with less energy, okay? So just keep that in mind. So if you've got access to a Gantt chart, I know part of our job management software, which is buildexact.ca, that's what we use. All of our over 100 franchises use that software currently. Inbuilt there is a really basic Gantt chart, which definitely helps us understand how long the projects take, and then we can convert that to a calendar, and we can see when we've got starting points and where the different claim stages are going to overlap, which helps us in our financial assessment on our monthly cash flow forecast. Okay, so that was just jumping back into financials a little bit. Right, leadership, I've got to get done here. Leadership. So leadership is a very personal thing. It is a concept and it is a principle. We want to demonstrate good leadership value, but I want to tell you and I guess that's maybe why you're listening to me right now, is that you've got a hunger to go, okay, how can I do this better? How can I lead my business better? How can I, operate at a higher level as a leader within my industry? So to give an example, and this is the best way for me to do it, a guy by the name of John Maxwell, I'm actually a part of the Maxwell Leadership Certified team. And the reason is because I'm looking at what I do in my business as a CEO, and I've got general contractors looking up to me, and they don't want to just know how to knock nails into wood, certainly not. They don't want to just know how to maybe run, better projects. They want to know how to become better leaders. And so for me to do that, you can't take someone somewhere that you haven't been. So it's super important. The onus is on me. The speed of the leader determines the speed of the pack. And so I've got to make sure that I'm educating myself. And that comes in two forms. It is getting that leadership education, but also in my day-to-day operation where I come up against challenges. I know that my team watches me, and I'm not perfect by a long shot. I've got 2 of my kids that work in this office as well, so they know me better than anybody. And so, there's a human element of what I'm doing. But, what I've got to do is I've got to take the education, and then I've got to implement that understanding and then go and actually execute off of it. Because, Gary Vee says ideas are shit, execution's the game. So to know and not to do is not to know. And so it's super important that we're not just getting all this head knowledge, but we're actually using that and we're activating that. And the implementation actually really does pay us a dividend as well. And I think importantly, when we go back, a mixture of leadership and recruitment, we say, we can't get any good people. I think sometimes we don't pay them enough. That's one thing. But essentially what we want to do is we want to find people to join our team that have a leadership component. But I think that you attract the type of person that you are. Birds of a feather flock together. So if you're a really weak leader and your integrity is not there and you've got double standards and your work ethic is below and you're all talk but you're no actually action, you're not really implementing, good people that'll be repellent. You'll be very unattractive. Sometimes subliminally, people just go, look, I don't think I want to work here anymore, and they're out of here. So you want to understand that you want to attract are you wanting to attract the person that you are? So that's what I'm like. I want to be the best leader that I can. So that when I have good people come into my midst and they're inside my ecosystem, that there is a long-term benefit to me in my business, and that there is a synergy between the person I am as the leader and the owner of the business and the team that I've got included in my business. So that's super important. And the final thing I'll finish up with is personal development. I'm a big fan of book reading. I listen to podcasts, lots and lots and lots of, and I occasionally now watch YouTube videos, not so much now as much. I'm just always busy doing stuff. Occasionally I will drop into a Gary Vee video because I find him very entertaining. But I'll double down on several podcasts that really just help me stay on the cutting edge. And so I would urge you to maybe flick off the radio and some of the bullshit news you're watching at nighttime and start to invest in yourself. It's what we call it personal development or self-development. Some of the areas that we focus around mindset, your attitude determines your altitude. The more you learn, the more you earn. You've heard me say that before. So, if you've got an above the line thinking thought process that says, if it is to be, it's up to me. I'm going to choose to see the glass half full, not half empty. You're going to assume the responsibility for everything good and bad. Anything that happens is your fault. Because it gives you the right, or you actually buy the rights to the solution when you do that. That's super important. That's what I'm talking about, mindset. I think selling and negotiating skills is something that we can always be working on. I've got a 20-year-old in the next room that if you're a general contractor interested in just chatting with us about a Smith & Sons general contracting or building franchise, you will be dealing with a 20-year-old female that I have trained. And so, I think that really lends itself to the fact that, when you understand different systems and processes within selling and negotiating, that it can actually make your life a lot easier, but it takes a level of understanding and education. And sometimes there is some mentoring that's a part of that. That 20-year-old couldn't do it without me because I've spent the last 3 or 4 years going through a very analog process to work out what is my selling system. How is it that I negotiate with prospective general contractors, for the sale of a franchise? And I am telling you, can you compare selling franchises to general contractors to selling retail? It's nowhere near the same. Selling retail is a walk in the park compared to talking to you general contractors about the features and benefits of joining forces with Smithies. So if I can do it for contract sales with a 20-year-old female, I am telling you, you can do it within your business for retail sales. You just basically need to understand in that selling and negotiating process, you need to be able to prioritize. You got to pick your battles. You got to think about the long game. All of those sorts of things come into your education around negotiating and selling. And the thing I'll finish off with is time management. I think we always make time for the things that we want to do. This weekend, I'm going racing again. Hopefully the weather is good and it's not pouring with rain because I don't like racing in the wet. I'll do it, but I don't like it. But, ultimately we make time to do the things that we want to do. And so, I think what you have to do is you have to allocate time to the things that are important. You might not even enjoy them. I don't know. I spend a lot of time, researching and educating because I really, really do love the business of construction. I do love to develop high performance building companies within the construction sector. I do enjoy, understanding that what we do in the business is very unique and unorthodox. And I love the idea that if we're not already, one day we could be an industry leader in how we develop businesses within the construction sector. And certainly the other thing is how we nurture the new guys and gals coming through. Like hats off to the tradies or the apprentices that are coming through right now. I really wish we had more of them, and I really want to investigate, maybe how we can be a part of that change. But I guess right now, I want to urge all of those young guys and gals who are either in apprenticeships, for whatever trade it is, who might want to be general contractors or builders, is just stay close and keep talking to me here at Business for Builders, because, it's super important that, the next generation do it a lot better than we did. There's no reason why the next gen of tradies and general contractors can't stand on our shoulders and see further and do better. I absolutely believe it. So time management, for you to invest in yourself, you must do it. You can't be the leader of the business that you envisage and be the same person that you are today. So, there's a lot of, I think everything that we're doing here, designing all these systems, it is really, if it is to be, it's up to you. I think that if you can steal with your eyes and ears, do that. I understand it's not going to come to you in 5 minutes. You're really going to it's a painstaking process. Smith & Sons is 14 years old this year. We previously, there was another building company who is our big brother building company called GJ Gardner Homes. And, they've been franchising since 1993. Greg Gardner started that business in the early 80s. So we're talking many, many, many decades of development. And so this is why I would urge you, if you're a young player, to just be patient. Think big, dream big, start small, systemize the shit out of everything, and be patient, and you will win. So we talked about systems to do with marketing, sales, operations, financial and construction management, leadership, and personal development. Focus on those few things. Start doing your research. Jot those numbers down. I'm sure there'll be something in the bio that covers off, what we've talked about. And I wish you all the best. Like I said, you can find me, Max at businessforbuilders.ca. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Hit that notifications bell and share the content with those around you that might need it. Keep it real. Go build a kick-ass business. See you on the next episode. Cheers.